2, 1.
Welcome to the Fourth Line Podcast, part of Full Press Radio. This is February the 22nd, 2021. With you today is myself, Carl, and Stevie Nick.
I'm in a mood today, Carl.
Uh-oh.
I am in a mood. So good luck getting through this with me.
Tell us, what's got you riled up today? Maybe, let's start, let's put the show aside. We're going to spend the next hour in just one-on-one counseling. That's what we're going to do.
You want to know?
Yeah, I do.
You want to know what's going on?
Because I care.
Well, Carl, my back hurts from shoveling way too much snow this week. I can't get my inbox in order. My kid's sick, which means I'm going to be sick in like 2 days. I just want to finish the first season of Your Honor, but my wife can't get through episode 2. It's really driving me crazy. I haven't had enough coffee. My dinner turned out mediocre. You want to talk about how the Chicago Blackhawks are actually good tonight. But more than anything, Carl, more than anything, you know what happened today? The sun showed its face. And you know how I feel about the sun, Carl? That son of a gun?
I don't. I'm afraid to say how I think you feel.
The sun is our enemy. And I hate when the sun shows up.
I thought Nick was on the line, but it seems like I have Gary Bettman on the line. Is that who I have here?
I'm channeling my inner Gary. For a second, I didn't think you were going to get the bit. I was like, did he not see the quote? The sun is our enemy. Quote unquote, Gary Bettman.
It's the name of his book.
What a quote. I didn't see the whole thing. I'm sure it was taken out of context, but that quote does not need context.
No, it's great.
It perfectly captures how disastrous of an afternoon Saturday was.
Yeah, let's start right there. Did you watch the game?
So I turned the game on during the first intermission because we were out for a walk. It was a beautiful day outside, in case you didn't know.
Yeah, here too.
It was beautiful.
I was enjoying the sun.
Yeah, I was out enjoying it. We get home. I turn the TV on. It's first intermission. And the commentators are talking, and they're talking, and they're talking. And in my head, I'm going, they're kind of going in circles here. This game must be on delay, even though they hadn't formally announced it. And sure enough, yeah, it was on delay. And it just never started again that afternoon.
No. What I found most frustrating about that whole thing was that they announced, for those who are not aware, we're talking about the outdoor game beside Lake Tahoe, definitely not on Lake Tahoe, but beside the lake. That was delayed on Saturday. So
it was started and then delayed.
Yes. What was the most frustrating part of it was like they were clearly not playing that game anytime soon. And they were like, we've heard 15 minutes until the NHL is going to make a decision. And they so wanted that game to finish in the afternoon. There was no way that they wanted it to go till the night.
They're like, there's obviously some issues with the ice here, as they wipe sweat off their foreheads. Like, none of them looked cold at all.
Gary Bettman started that session where they'd like show him walking around decision making, wearing a toque and a full jacket, and by the end of it, he was in a Speedo. It was wild.
And you know what though? It looked beautiful. Like, it looked majestic.
It was a great day. Yeah.
It was a great day. The crane shots or the helicopter shots they were showing from up above just looked unbelievable. And then you zoom into ice level and players are like nearly breaking their ankles as they topple, not even skating very fast, just gliding along the ice, and they're toppling over.
Like after whistles.
Yeah.
Well, and they showed like it was about an inch of slush in some parts.
Yeah.
You can't skate through that.
And the ice looked like it had started to crack, like it was the Pacific Rim and giant monsters were going to come through and invade our world.
Monsters of Lockouts Past are about to wreak havoc.
It was so funny watching those overhead shots, and like the rink is surrounded by snow and it looks beautiful. And then you look at the water and there's people out in kayaks. I was like, that doesn't look cold.
No.
Who's out kayaking in the cold weather?
Yeah. I mean, there was a Red Wings fan there, so
there was one Red Wings flag.
That's who's doing it. Is Red Wings fans.
You know, when you said not on the lake, it reminded me we weren't the only ones who thought the game was happening on the lake.
There was literally a sign there advertising it. The marketing of it could have been better because we all thought that. But we also, I mean, we weren't the only ones who thought it was on the lake. We also weren't the only ones who thought it was a terrible idea to try to have that there, because it was. I mean,
yeah, clearly.
It was a mistake the way that they planned it. I'm not saying having it at Lake Tahoe was a mistake. It looked amazing. It got those shots. But by the time they could actually play the game that night, which turned out to be an amazing game, still had a good scenery, but it was dark. We got like a couple pine trees in the background, and that's it.
Yeah. And that ice must have been in like really, really bad shape for it to take them that long to repair it.
Well, because they needed it to like freeze again.
Yeah.
Then they needed to repair it. And so the options that they gave were, it was wild. I mean, this was in the Pacific time zone. And so the game started up 9:00 local time, midnight Eastern. I assume you did not stick around for the end of the game.
No, I was sleeping.
Yeah. For me, I stayed up for it. It ended here in Alberta, so Denver's time zone. It ended at 11:45. The other choice given to them was to restart it at 7 a.m. the next day. This is what you've set yourself up with, NHL? Either a game at midnight, which, I mean, I love when sports get weird, so I was absolutely all in for that. Like, sure, let's play a game in the middle of the night. Why not?
Mm-hmm.
But to make the teams, like, you've got to be showing up at the rink, 5:30 that day? You think you're going to get a good product having teams show up that early?
Don't you remember? I don't know if you do, but when I was a kid, there was always the earliest skate was 7:00.
Yeah.
And you just hate it. I remember begging my dad, like, please, can I just skip it this week?
Yeah.
Never let me. But I'm sure those players all had flashbacks to that and were like, nope, we'll take the 9:00.
Yeah, we'll stay up late. I mean, you're either getting like the kids' ice time in the morning or beer league ice time at night. That's what you're getting.
That's right. Take the beer league every time.
Yeah. I mean, I've played games that started when that game ended. So
that's got to be pretty brutal for the players, though, to play a period, show up all amped up, ready to play this big game. You get to play 20 minutes and then you have to shut it down for 10 hours?
It was 8 hours.
8 hours?
8.5 hour intermission.
And then you go and play the rest of it. Like, way to just throw off any momentum that you have, right?
Yeah. Well, and especially it was in the middle of a penalty kill. So like, talking about momentum, the Avs came back and they had a 5-on-3.
Yeah.
And nothing came of it, as I mean, it was a short 5-on-3 to start that second period, but definitely a tough situation there for the league. The teams, the game was spectacular to end, though. Those are two fun teams to watch play against each other. They're very, very closely matched and super high skill. It was a great game.
I didn't get a chance to watch it because I was sleeping.
Well, if you had have woken up at about 2 a.m. when the game restarted, you could have watched it too.
Yeah, I could have. How? So tell me about what was so good about the game.
I really enjoyed. Nathan, while you were sleeping, my wife was sleeping next to me, and before Nathan MacKinnon scored the goal. I don't know. I'm sure you saw the goal making the rounds. It was one of many goals scored by Matthews, McDavid, and McKinnon on Saturday. But I literally yelled, "Hit the Jets!" as he was like going up, and he did, and then he scored. And I mean, the big thing that came from that goal was the Alex Pietrangelo replay. I don't know if you saw it, where he was mic'd up for the game, and McKinnon started coming in, and he just goes, "Oh boy."
I love it. They know. I love how these guys, they just know. They're so aware of who's on the ice and coming towards them.
I mean, when someone's coming at you like that, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, no, fantastic game. And I hope that we get that as a playoff matchup. Right now, they would actually be, disappointingly, the first round of the playoffs. Hopefully, Colorado can sneak up to that division lead and play them in the second round. So,
what'd you think about the jerseys in action?
Well, those jerseys looked good. I mean, the red Vegas jerseys are atrocious.
Yeah, I agree. I didn't like them.
I don't want to see them ever, but the Nordique in the burgundy looked good.
I agree. It did look good. I'm still confused about why someone in Denver would want that.
Yeah, I mean,
it's a Quebec play for sure.
Absolutely. But hey, it looked good. And like you said, it looked fantastic early for the Sunday game, Boston, Philly. I mean, much worse of a game as Boston won 7-1, but
yeah. So I didn't get to watch that one. As I said in my rant when we started, my kid was sick last night, so I was busy. But what happened there? Okay, hold on. First of all, can you explain to me the '90s theme? I saw some pictures and videos, and I don't understand why they all went 90s.
Because they could.
Just because they thought it would be fun?
Yeah. Just dress up day.
Okay. Weren't they all babies in the 90s?
Most of them.
Yeah.
I mean, they got rid of Chara, so like the average age of the team dropped by about 2. So
hilarious. And then what happened during the game?
I mean, Boston's top line, Pasternak and friends had their way with Philly. They did not look. Philly looked like they were expecting a 2:00 game and showed up 3 hours late. It was a rough one. I did not watch all of it because
it's that bad, eh?
It was that bad of a game. Yeah.
One of those you get halfway through and you're like, I can't watch anymore.
There's better things for me to be doing with my time right now.
Did they at least switch the goalies? Philly?
Probably.
I hope so. I can't stand watching a goalie just get peppered with goals and the score's climbing 5, 6, 7, and you're like, please just get him out of there. I can't watch this anymore.
They did. They left him in for 6 of them. Carter Hart led in 6 goals on 23 shots. Not a good game for him. But I mean, a good week. What do you think? The NHL and their outdoor games situation, after doing something like this, do you want them to try something creative like this again and hope they learn from their mistakes, or just don't bother?
Yes, keep trying creative and fun things. But if you're going to build an ice rink outside somewhere, just do it somewhere cold.
Are you telling me that California and Nevada is not the place to build an outdoor rink?
Look, I don't know much about Lake Tahoe. Barely know where it is. There was snow on the ground, and I questioned whether it was fake snow or not, but I don't think it was.
No, that looked real.
So there was snow on the ground, which tells me it is cold there, but it's also California and Nevada, which in my head goes, those are not cold places.
No. And it's elevation can do fun things. I did actually, when I drove from Phoenix to the Grand Canyon, and we drove through a snowstorm on the way to there. So I do have seen that snow exists in Nevada, but
I don't know. They got to do something about that sun.
Yes. I would say next time they should build a giant umbrella above the rink so that they can just open it. Why don't you,
retractable roof.
Just build a retractable roof. How about this? Why don't you just build like a solid permanent roof and then build some walls around it? You could probably fit about 20,000 people inside of it if you built it correctly. And if you do something like that, I bet the government will pay for half.
There you go.
So,
and all you need is a name and a logo, and
yeah, I don't know, Seattle Kraken. How does that sound?
I love it. Where'd you come up? Did you just come up with that on the spot?
Yeah, I'm pretty good. Anyway, so why don't we'll build an outdoor rink with walls. I mean, I'm seeing it all the time. I see all these restaurants building outdoor seating areas with walls and roofs on them and calling it outdoor. Why don't we can do that same thing with an arena?
Yeah, I agree.
But that said, I mean, I would love. Minnesota is cold and has lots of lakes. We talked on this show before Lake Tahoe was even announced. Lake Louise. There's Lake. Head to Muskoka. Get some playing up there. Beautiful. And then when it's dark, you're still surrounded by trees. You don't even have to have a lake. Just play it at night surrounded by trees. It'll be fantastic.
Yeah, I agree. I want them to keep trying these cool, fun things. Just like, I don't know. Don't put ice rinks where it's hot.
Be smarter. Yeah, absolutely. All right. Coming out this week, let's get to today's news. Actually, today's news, the wild and crazy news coming out today. Artemi Panarin of the New York Rangers is taking a leave of absence from the team because of some news coming out of Russia, some allegations of abuse of him, domestic violence coming back from 2011 coming out. And I mean, we rarely touch on issues like this, mostly because, I mean, our stance has been, is, and will continue to be, don't hit people, don't be a jerk, and continue with that. So, but what's interesting with this, taking the leave of absence, which we rarely see, but also kind of the political side and landscape of it as well.
Yeah, really, really crazy story that, there's this whole backdrop of this crazy story in Russia of an attempted assassination on a politician by the government. Panarin speaks out about it. And I think the general thought behind this news coming out about him now is that it's a bit of a smear for speaking out against the Russian government in that situation.
Yeah. Well, and so the person who did was a former coach who said in this that he was pressured to come forward with it. So that was why he chose to at this point in time. And he had a number of things. As of right now, as of our recording, he is the only source corroborating this. Obviously, Panarin will, talk with lawyers, etc., and try to figure out what's happening. We have no idea if it did or didn't do this. But almost immediately after it came out, the story became like, this is only political. This has nothing to do with like him actually doing it or anything like that, which is an interesting situation.
Yeah, it was weird the way the news came out because it wasn't just presented as news, right? It was presented at like the story wasn't what the allegations against Panarin were. The story was, here's how, Panarin's being played. Very strange. The Rangers followed up with a statement too that, them and Panarin vehemently deny all of these allegations. So, you can't really read too much into the generic public relations statements. I'm sure there's a lot going on behind the scene, like you said, with lawyers and consultants and stuff. It's just a really weird and wild situation.
So taking it back to hockey, which is really, we're in no way qualified to talk about the rest of it, right?
No.
If he did do it, whatever consequences are due should take place. Absolutely. But from the hockey side of it, with him being out for an indefinite amount of time right now, right? Really puts the Rangers in a spot. But at the same time, as I say that, like, it really just with those sorts of things there, I really think that the hockey side of it is not, that's why he's taking a step away, right? Like, he's taking that step away because he is needing to sort those things out and deal with it. And whatever that looks like for him is more important than hockey. And I definitely agree with that.
Yeah, 100%. I also think, I think that's the primary thing. And then I think the secondary thing is what kind of distraction does this become for the team? And how can this kid go out? This kid, he's not much of a kid anymore. He's 29. How can this guy go out and play a game and then have to go answer questions to the media that's going to be anything about the game?
Yeah.
So it's really it's not really, the next few weeks for him are not going to be about hockey, whether he plays or not.
Mm-hmm. And like you said, the media side, because I mean, for many people, it would be like, I want to get back out there because that provides me with the necessary distraction of what's happening. But from the media side, especially being in New York, and the media attention there is going to be huge. I mean, as well, we see repeatedly the NHL, and maybe this was them being proactive, because the NHL is not shy to step in and place players on like a list where you're not, right. I think back to Slava Voinov and some of those other domestic violence accusations made in the past. They're like, look, figure this out. We'll do our investigation and come back. So I think there's also a side of it where this is just him getting out in front of that and say, look, I might end up on this anyways. They probably consulted with league, etc., and said, I'm just going to do this before anyone can make that decision for me. Yeah.
And the NHL is also, by the way, no stranger in getting tangled up in the political side of Russian hockey either.
No, they know what that's all about.
It's been many years that they've been kind of playing that game. Yeah, if anyone's interested in learning more about Russian hockey and politics, there are plenty of documentaries out there I can recommend to you that it's really interesting stuff.
Yeah, lots. I mean, we talked 2 off seasons ago about the Russian 5 documentary.
Russian 5, yeah.
Yeah, that's just one of them. So
yeah,
interesting scenario. We'll obviously keep following that, and as more information becomes relevant, we will keep you up on that. The Nashville Predators, they had some interesting news come out with them this week that essentially the entire team is on the trade block, which you rarely, I mean, they didn't put it out via press release, but this came out, it was mentioned on headlines on Hockey Night in Canada, and it kind of trickled its way out over the last couple of weeks of just who is and isn't available in Nashville.
It was basically a press release. They didn't release a press release, a statement, but the way Friedman put it forward on Saturday headlines on Hockey Night in Canada wasn't oh, my sources tell me this. He was just straight up about it. The Nashville Predators have everyone on the trade block.
Except there was 3 players that they did not, right?
There was 3 players that they did not. That's
Ryan Ellis.
Yep.
The other
Roman Josi. And the most unexpected one.
It's another defenseman.
No, it's Pekka Rinne.
Oh, right. Yeah. I mean, sure. Why not?
I'm sitting there. I'm oh, Philip Forsberg, Dante Fabro. No, Pekka Rinne. I was what? Him?
Yeah. So what do you think of the situation in Nashville? What is there? I mean, as you said, this is something that was an intentional leak. But what do you think? What's the end game here in Nashville?
I don't know. Look, the team is obviously, in my opinion, not playing up to how good they should be.
Yeah, definitely.
So this whole idea of blowing it up seems a little dramatic to me. Feels a little early in their kind of trajectory of being good.
Mm-hmm.
So what are they trying to get here? I don't know. Do they need more picks? They're in a good space cap wise. So
one of the reasons why Pekka Rinne is on that list of people, no movement clause for Pekka. So that's why.
He's got a good agent.
Yeah. And you signed a 1-year you sign a 1-year deal with a no movement. That seems about right. So for me, it kind of makes sense that like, look, we're just going to say everyone is available. We'll field offers on literally anyone on this team. We're going to see what we get and go from there, because if you look down this roster, right, long-term locked in, Matt Duchene, Michael Granlund, Ryan Ellis, and Roman Josi. So like two of those, right, Ellis and Josi are like the leadership core of that team.
Yep.
Outside of that, right, Philip Forsberg, one more year after this.
Sure.
Where's Ryan Johansson? He has more years too. He was on the IR section of Cap Friendly there. Matthias Ekholm, only one more year after this. A lot of these guys, like this was the team designed for one more year and then see what happens. If you're able to get some of these guys out of here and get some significant prospects, draft capital back, I'm all for that. This is not the year for them, right? They're 7-10 right now in a tough division where, I mean, we talked, the Blackhawks are crushing it there. You've got, Tampa and Dallas in there. It just
Florida
doesn't
Panthers.
It just doesn't seem like this is a situation where they're going to come back from. See what you can get, cut your losses while you can.
Yeah, I mean, I don't disagree with you. At this point of the season, we're a quarter of the way through the shortened season. So, we spoke back when the season was getting fired up. We talked about how in a normal season, it's normally around American Thanksgiving when the trade talks start to heat up and teams kind of figure out how they want to play out the rest of the year.
Yeah.
We're probably at that point right now in this shortened season.
I would say, so Nashville's played 17 games. That would be 25 games on an 82 game schedule.
Yeah. So we're around that point.
Yep. Absolutely.
Now's the time to start teasing it out, I guess.
Yep.
When you put it like that.
So what do you think? So let's look at, the top piece that I'd be looking at is $6 million cap hit Philip Forsberg this year and next year left on this deal. What kind of a value do you think they could expect to get back for him?
High, very high.
It's got to be, right?
I don't expect that. I don't expect him to move because that's the kind of player that you assign too high of a value to. Like you hear offers on it because if you get something incredible, then you're like, yeah, for sure, we'll take it. But I don't like it's to me, this is the kind of player that you assign such a high value to that teams aren't willing to pay for it.
Yeah. Oftentimes even the starting conversation isn't close enough of what you want.
Yeah. Yeah. And then you look at someone like Matt Duchene.
Could you imagine if Matt Duchene gets traded again and still misses the playoffs?
No, I can't. That's like when you're watching a game and the score gets run up and it's 5 goals, 6 goals, 7 goals, and they're not pulling the goalie.
But so for Nashville to make a trade, if you look at, we've seen running through waivers this past week, like overpriced signing after overpriced signing running through waivers. None of them getting claimed, in part because even if they are quality enough roster players, nobody has cap space. There are 8 teams with more than $2 million cap space. Literally middle of the pack is Colorado sitting with $600,000 in space. So for Nashville to be wanting to move some of these guys out, they're going to have to be taking back some of those other pieces. And a lot of teams have those, but that also means that Nashville is going to be expecting more back. We're not going to take your salary dump unless we're getting more from you as well. And so I think that really puts Nashville in a tough situation to be moving a Forsberg, even though he is an incredibly affordable piece, to be able to say, look, we need to take back some salary and do that when we see guys like, Patrick Marleau being a salary dump for a first round pick, and you're wanting to also get Philip Forsberg in that deal. It's not going to happen.
Yeah. Yeah. I totally agree. They're going to have a tough time. And, now that I look down their kind of prospect list, it's not a ton of names I recognize down this list. So they're probably, and then you look at what kind of picks they have available. They have their own picks. They have all of them, but they have their own, except for an additional 4th rounder from Colorado this year. But if they're thinking they got to start looking towards the future, then yeah, you got to start building that prospect pipeline a little better and drafting more players.
Yeah, and I think it's going to be fine for them to do that. This is the thing that happens when you are good for what they've been a contender for the last decade.
Yeah, exactly.
This happens. You have no prospects to bring up or a limited amount of them. You've filled that roster with talent. You've signed some guys to deals. And we've seen, I mean, he's been able, they've been able to get out of deals in Nashville before, right? Clearing out the PK Subban trade to make room to sign Matt Duchene, some of those other moves like that. So I don't doubt the fact that they can do this. It really just depends what approach they're wanting. And for me, it feels like Nashville's ready for, or needs to be ready for the full rebuild.
Or at least the rolling rebuild. I'm sure they're hoping for more of a rolling rebuild.
That's easier said than done. You look at the Rangers, right? And even we thought the Rangers are going to be good. They're going to keep doing it, right? 2 years done, and they're going to be back in the playoffs. And now they're not.
I mean, they did come out and say, hey, we're going to be really bad for a while.
Oh, exactly.
Please bear with us.
But even with, getting Luckinen into Kakko and Lafreniere, they're still in a bit of a struggle. So
yeah, for sure.
Takes time. Speaking of a team, last week we put the New Jersey Devils into the Elimination Station. Nico Hischier was out then. He's back, and he's now the captain of the team.
Yeah, that was kind of interesting news to come out a quarter of the way through the season.
I mean, I get that they wanted him playing, right? You don't want to be like...
Has he not played at all this year?
No, he'd been out still, so...
Wow.
So they get him back, and then he heads and gets the captaincy. So good on him.
For him. Nice young guy being captain of an NHL team.
It just seems like this is more and more the trend for teams to really give that leadership to their young players, and I'm all for it. I mean, this is how you find out if they're the ones that you want. And he's a quality player and been with them since kind of the beginning of this rebuild. So,
I mean, at that age, what you're hoping for is leadership, for them to lead by example. They don't have a ton of experience to lean on there. So it's really, you got to go and be the example for our team night in and night out. I don't watch enough of the Devils to say that he does that definitively. I suspect that he does. He's a first overall draft pick. But I always thought that was interesting about, these such young players being named captains of these teams. Like, really, what can they bring from a leadership perspective?
Yeah. And it is definitely a leading by example point of view. And I think of some of these younger players that have stepped into that role, right? We see Edmonton with Connor McDavid being there. And he definitely, I mean, we're not in the room, so we can't say, but he doesn't have that playoff experience that you'd want. He's not like he's been there and done that. We've seen teams like Toronto go with not the young guy. So lots of different ways that teams are going about it. But I like this choice for New Jersey, and I like that they're really putting their weight into their young guys and trusting in them. Yeah,
I agree. Speaking of McDavid, this wasn't on our list, but 500 points.
Yeah, in the exact same number of games as it took Sidney Crosby to do it.
Pretty impressive.
Yeah, he's a pretty good player.
He's a good hockey player.
He's okay. I mean, on a night when we had Austin Matthews get 2 goals, 2 assists, we had 5 points from Connor McDavid, and a mere 3 points from Nathan MacKinnon. But
okay, so I got scoffed at this weekend when I brought this up, so I want to know your thoughts on this. Connor McDavid, Austin Matthews, lighting it up this year. They both are. Like, they look phenomenal. Would they be looking this phenomenal if they were regularly playing teams like Boston, Tampa Bay, Carolina? Like, is this a symptom of the Canadian division?
And I think it's a part of it for sure, right? Like we've seen some teams, right? I'm going to use Montreal as an example. I know that this is not the one that you asked for, but we've seen Montreal like feast on Vancouver this year.
Yeah.
And now Montreal's kind of settled back into reality and they're a fringe playoff team, just like we expected them to be, right? You play these games and you get into these situations where in a very small sample size, you play the same team over and over and over again. And it's going to be skewed a little bit. Now, don't get me wrong. Toronto has looked great against almost literally the only team they haven't looked great against is Ottawa. So,
which is hilarious.
Yeah. Which I love. That's, but then they also put up like, what was it? 6 goals against Ottawa last week?
Yeah. 7, I think.
It's one of those things where I want to say that, but without the actual like data to represent and like show back and forth of what they would do against some of these stronger teams, it's very difficult to say.
Yeah, I agree. Something tells me like the travel would be hard. Like there's just all these circumstances. I don't know if there's any like scientific way to show it, but anyways, just a conversation I was having with my father-in-law and I got and the eye roll. We should
reach out to some folks and see if we can get some folks with the numbers better than we are.
Yeah.
And see their thoughts on it. 'Cause
that'd be really interesting.
I'd be curious to know like what the data actually says about that.
Yeah.
Yeah, interesting. But speaking of that, right? Blackhawks. You mentioned earlier that we were going to talk about that. Chicago Blackhawks sitting 3rd in the Central Division. I don't want to do a full like buy and sell segment. I really just want to know what's the deal with Chicago?
Patrick Kane is very good at hockey. He is. I've always known how good he was, but I was watching one of their games last weekend, and he was the most visible player on the ice. He was all over the ice. He was fast. He was strong. He was just so good. And I think he's having a better year than he should be having at 32 years old. So he's really carrying the team this year. They needed him with Taves out. They needed him to take a bigger step forward. And I think he's really done that. They're a very young team.
Absolutely. Right. I mean, I look at a lot of their team, right? Taves is gone. Do they still somehow have Brent Seabrook like on that roster? Not that anyone would take him, but it just makes me.
He's not playing though.
No, but like they're doing this with him on their roster.
Yeah.
Goaltending wise, right? They had Robin Lehner last year, and now with him gone, it's just been goalie by committee for a bit here, and they're getting success there too.
Who is this Kevin Lankinen guy? I've never even heard this name before, and then all of a sudden he's just like dominating teams in the Central Division.
Yeah, I have no idea.
He's right now. I'm looking at his stat line: 927 save percentage, 13 games played. He's 25 years old.
Yeah, and certainly if the Blackhawks were expecting him, they would have just run him out there last year. Let's play everyone's favorite game. Where is Kevin Lankinen from?
I was going to ask you. I already clicked on his page. He's from Finland.
I'd expected it, but not with the first name Kevin. Lankinen,
yeah.
And a goalie told me Finnish, but Kevin
threw me off too. I was like, oh, he must be Finnish. And then I looked at the first name. I was like, American. Nope. Yeah. But Malcolm Subban's had a good 4 games in the ones that he's played as well.
Yeah, so they're getting this great goaltending. They've got, they don't have Kirby Dach, which they should have him, right? He broke his wrist in World Juniors. They don't have Jonathan Taves. Like those are 2 big pieces that they're missing, and yet people keep stepping up for this team. How much longer do you think they can keep this up though?
I still my gut still tells me they're not a playoff team. So So I don't know, but I don't think much longer. I hope not much longer. I hate the Blackhawks.
I mean, because you're going to be playing them 7 times this year.
Yeah.
Again, playing against the Red Wings, which is what I thought, right? When I first saw the Blackhawks doing what they're doing, I'm like, well, they've just been feasting on bad competition, right? They beat the Red Wings, twice? Four times already.
3 or 4 times. Yeah.
4 times they beat the Red Wings, but then they've beaten Tampa. They lost to Tampa, but they've beaten the Jackets. They've beaten
the Stars.
The Stars. They've beaten the Canes. Like, these are some good teams that they're playing against and winning. But I do think this kind of brings it back to that North Division conversation of so they've gotten a bunch of wins against the Jackets. They've gotten a bunch of wins against the Wings. And when I look at them having, 9 wins, when 4 of those 9 come against Detroit, I'm not entirely sold that this team is for real.
Yeah. And I think that, where are their games against Tampa here? They lost twice against Tampa. They haven't beaten Tampa at all, have they?
No, they just played Tampa those first 2 games of the year for them.
They played Tampa 5 times in the month of March.
It's going to be a rough March for the Blackhawks.
Yeah. Then they play the Panthers 4 times and the Stars twice.
Okay, let's camp on the Panthers for a second, and then we're gonna let's take a break. We'll come back on the other side. I'm gonna talk Tampa or Florida because I have a question for you, and then we'll get to the Elimination Station.
Okay, great.
So before we took the old break ski, you mentioned the Panthers as a good team, as they could beat the Panthers, and it's true, right? The Panthers are sitting near the top of this division.
They're 11-3-2.
Yeah.
The Florida Panthers.
Yeah.
That's pretty good.
And doing it without their $10 million goalie, Sergei Bobrovsky.
Oh boy. What's funny about Florida? The sun is up there all the time.
Wow.
And what we say about the sun? It's our enemy.
It is. Is that what Bobrovsky's problem is?
I don't know.
Is he also an enemy of the sun, or the sun is his enemy?
It must be. It must be, because he doesn't look good at all.
He does not. And the team around him, normally last year we could have said he's not doing, the team around him is not doing well, but Quenneville's got that team playing really well.
Yeah. Yeah, they look really good. They look like a strong team.
So
we're talking about Bobrovsky, they look like a much stronger team without Bobrovsky when they have Chris Strider in, who has a .926 save percentage.
Yeah. So how much, you can't be paying Bobrovsky for 5 more seasons for $10 million each and not at some point get him back in there, but they don't seem that interested in it right now. What would you do if you were the Panthers trying to get him going?
First of all, you always play the hot hand. You can't not play Chris Strider. I don't know how to say his name. You can't play him. You can't not play him when he's playing like this.
Yeah.
So I don't know. They have to have their coaching staff work with Bobrovsky. What motivates this guy? What gets him going? Because he needs some motivation bad.
Maybe it was Torts yelling at him.
Maybe. Maybe there's more truth to the whole playing with his countrymen and the rumors of him and Panarin going to the same team. Maybe there was something to that.
Yeah.
I don't know. Obviously we know nothing. We're speculating here, but what's changed for him?
There's definitely something, right? Something that he felt comfortable and was able to have success with, because skill-wise, he showed he can do it.
Yeah.
I don't believe that he forgot how to play hockey.
No, he has the tools. He's got the skills.
Yeah. So unless there's some sort of underlying injury or something is not right with him, and they need to bring in, I mean, sports psychology, whatever you need, that investment is worth putting a little extra into to get him good.
I mean, maybe he just got a little too comfortable. Long-term deal, big cap hit. It's his big boy contract. He's all set.
I mean, maybe that's it. Maybe a little too many snacks on the weekends. He's got that little extra snack money now. Also, it's Drieger, Chris Drieger. Drieger.
Is he American?
Is that's your choice? No, he's from Winnipeg.
Yeah. Okay.
I like that. Like you wanted to disagree with it.
How could you disagree with it?
All right, let's head to the Elimination Station.
Okay.
Elimination Station.
All right, the Elimination Station, where we eliminate a team from the playoffs. And with, again, the weirdness of this season, we have teams that we have eliminated on the verge of being in a playoff spot. We might have some problems, Nick. The LA Kings are currently tied with the Arizona Coyotes for the last spot in the West Division. Are we going to have to take them out?
The Kings?
The Kings.
Take them out of the Elimination Station?
Yeah.
Oh.
Okay. That's good, because I didn't want to.
Have we only done that once?
We have only ever done it once. And I mean, the team that we had to do it for was an amazing squad. There was no doubt that if any team was going to do it was that team. So I think we have to, do we call it the Colorado Avalanche rule at this point?
Yeah, definitely. I love that. Remember when we put the Kings in the Elimination Station, the Ducks were on like a heater?
Yeah, and then now the Ducks are not. But then the Kings aren't going to continue it either. Like, let's be real here.
No.
So I feel very confident that the Kings will not win. I mean, like they've got what? 9 out of their last 10 points. But again, they played the Coyotes. They played the Wild and the Sharks. You get it where they're playing the Blues, the stretch where they play Blues, Knights, Avalanche. It's going to look real different.
Yeah, they're going to fall pretty fast.
They play the Blues 6 times in the next 3 weeks.
Oh my God, the Blues are going to feast on them.
And then they also, in the middle of that, they play Colorado, and right after they play Vegas. So in the next month, they play those teams 10 times. Good luck, Kings.
Yeah, have fun. I think we should go out of the West, though.
I do. Where are you thinking?
I'm thinking the East.
Okay. Who are you feeling eliminating? Last week, we eliminated a team from the East as well, eliminating the New Jersey Devils.
Yeah, so we're going to snake this. So we went. So the first 4 we went North, Central, West, East. Now we're going to go East, West, Central, North.
Okay, I'm not going to remember that, but I'm glad you are.
Me neither. But I think that it has to be Buffalo.
They're pretty bad.
Yeah. Yeah, and like you look at the West, there's 2 points between the last place team and the last playoff team. You look at the North, again, they're like 4 points. It's not that far. Buffalo is like 7 points. And the gap is pretty big there.
And those teams in front of them are good. Like
yes.
that top 5 in that division to me is, even though it's like really early, I'm going to lock those 5 in.
Yeah. I would agree with that.
So welcome to the Elimination Station, Buffalo. Now I was thinking about this segment before we started the show and trying to figure out like, who do I want to eliminate? And one reason why I wanted to steer clear of Buffalo is I have no idea how to fix this team.
Yeah, this team's weird. This team is weird. Like You know who's on this team? Curtis Lazar, and he has 3 goals.
Of course, Curtis Lazar's on this team.
Oh my God, I forgot Eric Stahl was on this team. Yeah, I'm with you. I don't get this team. I don't understand what goes on in Taylor Hall's head when he makes decisions.
Like by joining this team or on the ice decisions?
No, by joining
both?
this team. Both.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know. Like I immediately want to go to goaltending, but that's not the only issue. And I don't even know if it's the biggest issue.
I don't think it is. I think part of it is the same issue that we've seen for the last bit with Edmonton. And I would honestly take an Oilers approach here because you've got Jack Eichel, incredibly talented player, right? Not as good as Connor McDavid, but still, he is a good enough player to be the best player on a contending team. Can we agree?
Yes.
Okay. But like surrounding him is not good in a lot of areas.
Yes.
And we saw with the Oilers, right? They switched coach after coach after coach. And it feels like Ralph Kruger's like almost on his way out already from Buffalo, right? The Pagula's just like, it just seems like this is his only chance. This is his year. And if this keeps up, he's gone. And then we've got another coach again and again and again. And I feel like they need to get someone in there that the players can have confidence in and can have faith in, because it doesn't seem like that's the case right now.
I 100% agree, because they have been drafting so high for so long. Like they have all the top end prospects and talent. Like it's there. It's just not coming together. Yeah. So something needs to be done to bring it all together.
And
I don't know.
And that's not something that I think you can just go out and find super easily. Right. But like bringing the front office decision making. I mean, they didn't hire you for VP of business development, right? Like those are the kinds of decisions that they're making there. So biggest I wouldn't say biggest mistake they've ever made, but biggest mistake of 2020 for the Sabres for sure.
Easily.
Yeah. I'd say that's probably on their low points. But like in general, there's not much roster wise that they have that flexibility to do, right? Like the top players need to be given that time to work with this team. Dahlin, Eichel. I mean, you've invested into Jeff Skinner.
Yeah.
Right. You need him to keep doing it.
Yeah.
And I don't want to say change the coaches again, because that's a terrible idea. But it still doesn't seem to be working.
But it's not just change the coaches again. It's go find the right coach. Like I don't know how those processes work, but you need to go find the guy who looks at who has a plan for this team and understands the things that motivate each of these players and can get them to gel together, because that's obviously not happening. And
that's what I mean. It does seem Kruger came in and like off season was like, "Hey Skinner, you're on the fourth line," and kind of tried to take control of the team and the situation like that. And Skinner has been getting more chances and has been producing, but I mean, Jeff Skinner is a hot and cold player his entire career. And if you don't understand that as the coach of the team, there's some other things going on there too. Like you need to be okay with that. And I do agree with you that being able to find someone who can come in and provide that insight initially is good. And I'm not saying it needs to be an outside player. I think you can have that, or an outside coach. Ooh, maybe a player coach.
Oh, Buffalo do it. I mean, Eichel's basically a player coach.
He's a player everything. Like we've had coach and GMs. It's been a while since we had some of those, but a player coach GM, why not?
If anyone can do it, it's Jack Eichel. At that salary, he could just buy the team at the end of his contract.
Why not? Yeah. And then he can hire whoever he wants with whatever he wants.
That's exactly right.
Maybe that's his end game. Maybe that's what's happening here. Jack Eichel wants to buy a professional hockey team, and he's just going to tank the value of the team by such a large amount that he can buy it and then bring it up. He'll be player, coach, GM, owner of the Buffalo Sabres. That's what's happening here.
That's the 4D chess version of playing hockey.
I can't believe
that's galaxy brain right there.
I didn't believe we didn't see this coming. There we go. Well, I want Buffalo to have success. That's the thing here. They've been so bad for so long that I have nothing ill against them, and I just want that fan base to have something to celebrate.
It's just hard to watch year after year. It's like a team's running the score up like 5, 6, 7 goals, and they're just not pulling the goalie. Boom! I did it 3 times. The perfect amount of callbacks for a joke.
I think, does Beetlejuice show up now?
All right. We'll pull the goalie on that joke. It's the last time.
Till next week. That's all I want. I want them to have some success, but
they deserve it after all this time.
This is not the year.
Yeah. No. God, no.
So that brings us to Nick's Lidstrom for this week. Nick, what do you want to do with your Lidstrom? Last week, remind the folks of who we had.
Last week, we picked the Tampa Bay Lightning because they were heading into what looked like would be a fun week of games against the Dallas Stars. And those games just never happened because they were supposed to take place in Dallas. And due to the crazy winter weather that they're having in Texas right now, I believe the arena was without power and they couldn't play.
Yeah, they originally, the plan was for them to play a limited power game, which I actually really wanted to see what that looked like. The Stars came out and they're like, we've got a plan to reduce power.
It's just all dark, but they're wearing their 3rd jerseys.
Yeah, exactly. That was you're talking about galaxy brain. That's how you do that. They knew this was coming. Interesting that they didn't just move the games to Tampa.
Yeah, I don't understand that either.
Because they could have rearranged it slightly to play the games there. I know the Raptors had a game Sunday, but they could have rearranged it. Instead, what they did was canceled the Blackhawks game against the Hurricanes and then made Tampa play Carolina instead.
The poor people who have to run this schedule, like this is the kind of year that if I was that person would be like this, I'm going to quit my job. I can't take this anymore.
I think it would be fun to a certain point. Every
helps.
day is crisis.
Yeah, you're just full crisis mode. But at least you knew it was coming, right? The second they're like, we're having a season, then your brain goes, all right, crisis mode. Here we go.
And ultimate creativity to be like, look, there is nothing wrong with either of these teams. They're completely fine. We're canceling that game. Dallas, I know that you have no power. You're going to stay in Dallas. We're not going to bring you out of there to play in another arena that's also empty, and it doesn't matter if fans are there because no one's going to be there anyways, so we can be creative. No, we're going to cancel Chicago and play Carolina, Tampa on a Sunday night. Let's go.
So weird. Hilarious. Anyways, so those games didn't happen. I believe Tampa ended up playing 1 game this week.
Yeah, and they're currently playing Carolina again. That game is, let's see what the score of that game is. I mean, last week we had, do you remember what happened last Monday night?
Was that the Leafs game?
Last Monday night, I sat here and said, the Leafs had a great week. They beat Ottawa twice, and they're currently up 5-1. Great week for the Leafs.
5-1, Carl, is the most dangerous lead in hockey.
It's true. I mean, because they didn't score the 6th goal, and that was the problem, or the 7th. So that game is currently tied at 2, so I won't make any sweeping declarations, even though I will say it is on pace to hit the over-under for this game, which was 6.
There you go. So here's what I think we should do for this week. Since we really only got one game in with Tampa, I think we should run them again. They have a pretty full schedule this week. They have, today's the 22nd, so they have Carolina tonight. They have 2 more games against Carolina. Then they have Dallas on the 27th and Dallas next Monday.
And that Dallas game is in Tampa.
Yes.
So that'll
both of them are.
Yeah. And then they finally play the Blackhawks.
Yes.
So there we go. I like that. Let's do Tampa. They've got 4 games this week if we count next Monday. So that'll be good. So head on over to our Twitter. We'll be following Tampa games, watching how they do against the Hurricanes and the Stars, and to keep you up to speed on what's happening. We'll also play over under for those games. Both games against Carolina that they've played this week have been an over under of 6. And this game's currently on pace to hit 6. So you could probably expect some lines of 6.
Cool.
Which
that'll be fun.
I've said in the past, I refuse to bet a line that's an even number.
Yeah, you shouldn't.
It's a terrible idea. But hey, we play with it, and we've never had a push yet, and no one's picked it. So that's fine. But anyways, our Twitter to play that is at Fourth Line Podcast. You can head on over there. We're going to hand out some merch, some Fourth Line merch, also some merch from some of those teams. So we'll see what we find and see what we've got for you there. We are at the fourthlinepodcast.com, where you can head on over there. Head to us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, the Full Press Radio app. You can find us over there. We will be back every Monday. If this is your first time listening, thanks for sticking around all the way to the end. Hit that subscribe button wherever you're listening to, or like one of those places we just were. Subscribe to us. We'll be back here every Monday. We'll be there. If you're on the East Coast, we'll be sitting there waiting when you wake up Tuesday morning. So thanks for listening. And until next week,
it's time for us to wrap up another Fourth Line show. I know what you're thinking. You don't want us to go. Don't play hot. Playing hockey in a warm climate is no fun. But if you do, make sure you're shielded from the evil sun.